Hi. So, I am the daughter of Indian immigrants. And from the day I was born, my parents told me, you are gonna be a doctor and you're gonna marry one. Because that's what all perfect Indian daughters did. So my whole childhood was focused on getting into medical school. I worked so hard to get straight A's, and I had to be well-rounded as well. I was even into sports, and I am not athletically inclined. But I did it. When I graduated high school, I was accepted into a 6-year medical program. My parents were thrilled, and I hated it. I don't like science. So I left it, and I decided to pursue my passion, which was marketing and advertising. My dream job was to be the CMO or the VP of marketing for a Fortune 100 company. So my 20s were all about that career. And by the time I turned 30, I was the marketing director of the NASDAQ stock market. Thank you. It was the perfect job. And then my parents said, when are you getting married? Now, I wanted to get married. I wanted to marry somebody who was as career-oriented as I was. And I wanted to be a power couple. I wanted to be on the board of charities and go to galas. I wanted to be the DC power couple. And in my mid-30s, I met my husband, and which, according to my parents, was late in life. He was as career-oriented as I was, and we lived in DC, and we went to shows and concerts and brunches and happy hours. We lived this perfect DC couple life. And then we decided to start a family. Great idea. So we knew we wanted a son, a perfect little baby boy, and we were gonna name him Ryan. So we were ecstatic when we found out we were expecting, and we went in for our ultrasound, and they said, yeah, we're seeing a few red flags. Your risk levels are pretty low, but we want you to make an appointment for an echocardiogram and have the baby's heart checked out. And I thought, okay, no problem. It's another opportunity to see my baby. So I went to Children's National for the echo, and I got to see my baby and his little heart beating, and I was in this whole pregnancy haze of happiness, and when the echo was over, they put me in a conference room, and 5 people walked in. And I thought, oh shit, this isn't good. And the cardiologist said, Mrs. Desai, I'm really sorry to tell you, your baby has congenital heart defects. And the rest of that conversation is very much a haze, but I think it was something along the lines of, he's gonna need multiple open heart surgeries. We don't know what other conditions might be at play here. We don't know what his recovery is gonna be. And then the cardiologist was drawing a diagram of the perfect heart, and then she drew a diagram of Ryan's heart. And I tried really hard to focus and understand and absorb everything she was saying. And then finally, I just burst into tears. And I remember her saying to me, I was profusely apologizing, of course, and I remember her saying to me, are you kidding me? I'm surprised you held it together as long as you did. Now, they did tell me that as long as Ryan was in utero, he was healthy. But once he was born, he was gonna have the fight of his life. So they told me that the pregnancy could go exactly as I planned, and I could have that perfect birth that I wanted. But the first thing I did was quit my job, because I knew that I was gonna have to be there for him from day one, and I wanted to be prepared for that. I wanted to make everything as perfect as I could for this little guy. So my pregnancy was all about research and finding the best doctors and specialists and interviewing anybody who was gonna be involved in Ryan's birth and care. My baby registry was the most researched document in DC at the time. I researched car seats and strollers and bottles and pack and plays, and I had a spreadsheet broken out by price comparisons from the 5 major retail outlets. It was almost as if the perfect pacifier was somehow gonna make everything okay. And meanwhile, as we got toward the end of my pregnancy, I was going in about twice a week for Ryan to be monitored. And one day they said to me, Mrs. Desai, we're really sorry, but the fluid around Ryan has dropped. We need to admit you and induce labor. So I was admitted, and after 16 hours of labor, Ryan was born via emergency C-section. He wasn't breathing. He had to be rushed from the room before I could even see him. But they said, don't worry, Mrs. Desai. As soon as he settled in the NICU, we will bring you down there so you can hold him. Then they came back and said, Mrs. Desai, we're really sorry to tell you, but the transport team from Children's National is here, so we really need to take him. And I said, well, I haven't even seen him yet. So they brought him into my room, He was in a plexiglass bassinet. I got to pat his little head before he was whisked away. But they said, Mrs. Desai, don't worry, because you will get to spend time with him before his open heart surgery. We'll make sure we don't do it until after you've been discharged. 24 hours later, my husband calls me and says, they're doing surgery tomorrow morning. And I was devastated. I was like, if I don't get a chance to hold my baby boy, I may never get this chance. So my husband stepped in. He worked with Georgetown Hospital and Children's National to have me transported so that I got a chance to hold my baby before his first open heart surgery. So at 2 in the morning, the ambulance arrives to transport me to Children's. They go over every pothole in Washington, D.C. to get me there, put me on a stretcher, whisk me all the way up through Children's National into Ryan's room in the CICU. It was the most dramatic entrance Children's had ever seen. But I got to hold my son for about half an hour before his open heart surgery. So Ryan's surgery went beautifully. He was 2 days old, and he was in the hospital for 6 weeks after that, and then finally they let us take him home. Now, we were under strict instructions that we had to feed him every 2 hours. He had to gain enough weight before his second open heart surgery 6 months later. So for me, that meant I had to feed him every 2 hours, 24 hours a day, whether he was sleeping or he was awake. And Ryan suffered from severe reflux, so he was projectile vomiting every other feed. So for me, it was feed, clean up, feed, clean up, feed, clean up, 24 hours a day for months. And one day, on top of that, he was also going for regular doctor's appointments, specialist appointments, follow-ups. So we were going to probably 3 appointments a week on top of all this. So one day, we're getting ready for our weekly pediatrician appointment. And I got him ready, I got myself ready, I put him down, I go to grab the diaper bag, make sure I had my keys, and he threw up all over himself. And I just lost it. I am crying and screaming and ranting and raving. I mean, this is not the life I wanted. I was going to the office in dresses and high heels, and now I'm sitting here in puke-stained yoga pants. I don't know how long it's been since I've washed my hair. I should not be going to weekly pediatrician appointments. I should be taking my son to weekly play dates. My son's first home should not have been a hospital. His first month's birthday should not have been in the hospital. And meanwhile, I'm crying and screaming. My son is laying there. I look down at him. Our eyes locked for a split second. And he raised his eyebrows as if to say, "Really?" And I froze. And I thought, this is absurd. Here I am, crying about this life that I left behind when my son was born fighting for his. I'm mourning the seemingly perfect life that I had when I could have been mourning my child. And I realized in that moment that I may be his mother, but that Ryan was going to teach me more in his lifetime than I could ever teach him. So Ryan is now 7 years old. He has had his 3 open heart surgeries, and when he was 2.5, he was diagnosed with an extremely rare bone disease. He is literally 1 in a billion. He is one of 12 reported cases worldwide since 1960. There's no treatment, no cure. He gets around in a red motorized wheelchair. He has limited use of his hands. He goes to 4 therapy sessions a week, but he is hilarious, and he is smart, and he is a warrior. He loves music. He has such a talent for music. He loves the Rolling Stones and Taylor Swift. But he has so many friends, and he inspires people wherever he goes. And me? I am still happily married to the love of my life. Ryan has a little sister who is perfectly healthy. And 4 years ago, I started a business, and my focus is on helping special needs families like mine, for which I've won multiple awards. So at the end of the day, I may not have that perfect life I thought I wanted, but I have the life that's perfect for me. Thank you.